Rev up your engines!
James Self says, who's going to fill Scotty's shoes when he retires? I'm one of a kind, let me tell you. How on earth, it even amazes me, how a mechanic like me can get 1 billion views on YouTube. I'm 66 years old. It amazes me. But you're never going to find another me. I am one of a kind, literally. For the good and for the bad of it, like my wife says, sometimes it's the bad. But nobody's going to fill my shoes. It's impossible to do. You'll never find another Scotty. You know, Tori says, Scotty, are the 90s Nissans interference engines? They use a timing belt. Yes, almost all of them are interference engines with timing belts. Now, today, most engines, so in the United States, do have interference engines, but they have timing chains. And the chains are strong. They're built right like Toyotas, Hondas. They last as long as the car. You don't care. But modern Nissan, times those chains go out and the engines go. But all the old Nissans, they're pretty much all interference engines with timing belts. So you'd want to be a fanatic and change those belts like every 60,000 miles religiously. And the water pump and the idler pulleys, because if any of them broke, there goes the engine. Frog Gill says, Scotty, do Volvos prove to be expensive to own? Generally do in the long run. My great aunt had one, P1800, had 350,000 miles. Great car, but it had dual carb, standard transmission. Now they're high-tech European cars. As they age, they become very, very expensive to repair. And now, you know, the Chinese own them. And they said by, I think, 2025 or something, they're only going to make electric and hybrid electric cars. They're not going to make the gasoline cars anymore. So I wouldn't advise buying any more unless you get a cheap one. I've had customers get ones that had 100,000 miles. They'd buy them for $1,000, $2,000. They were okay for a year or two until they got expensive, but don't pay much for a used Volvo these days. Zero LG says, hello, Scotty. What do you think about having a Lexus, a project car? I do most of the jobs myself like the starter. Well, go right ahead. Don't pay too much. They're not collector's items. They made thousands and thousands and thousands, and they are great luxury cars. Just realize that if you want everything to work, you're going to pay a lot of money. Even something as stupid as the switch, the master switch, or the power windows and the power door locks, those things can be $400 or $500 because it's an ultimate luxury car. The parts cost more. You can often only get them at the Lexus dealer. Yeah, that's why I tell people, you want a Lexus, get a 300, get a 6-cylinder engine. They're perfectly fine. They go great. And then in the future, it looks like they're only going to have 6 cylinders. They say in the future that they're going to drop the V8 engines anyways. But they can be fun cars, and you can generally get them cheap. Just realize, it's a Lexus, it's a gas hog. Those V8s, especially those old ones, they are gas hogs. In town, they get horrible gas mileage. Don't expect to get good gas. I got a customer who bought one and said, oh, I'll get a Toyota product, get good gas mileage. She bought one. She said it gets horrible gas mileage. I said, why didn't you ask me? I would have told you it gets horrible gas mileage. It's a big old V8 engine. De Todo Un Poco says, Scotty, what's the average miles on used trucks I should buy? Depends a whole bunch on the truck. I've had customers buy Toyota Tacomas with 150 and still have them at 350,000 miles. On the other hand, Dodge trucks with 50,000 miles and they were falling apart. So it really depends on the truck, how it was driven. Let's say you look at an F-150. Let's say it's 2 years old, but it's got 100,000 miles. That 100,000 miles is going to be mainly highway driving. Highway driving is equivalent to 10% city. So 100,000 on the highway is like 10,000 in the city. Could still be a really good truck. So there's a lot of variables you gotta add in. It's not just a simple, well, this mileage, don't buy it, and this model. You gotta compare them all. Basically, you ask a guy like me to tell you the truth. Then you don't have to know all that stuff. Just have to find a guy like me, which is not easy to do. Al Britton says, Scotty, should I buy a 2005 Tahoe with 171,000 miles for $4,000? If not, what SUV or truck should I pay $4,000 for? No, I wouldn't pay $4,000 for that thing. I wouldn't give $500 for that thing. It's a worn-out Tahoe with 171,000 miles. They weren't that great. Every customer I had that bought one of those ended up hating them if they kept them for a long period of time. They were okay with the luxury and stuff when they first drove them, but then as they went out with 171,000 miles, even one of those, I wouldn't pay more than $1,500, $2,000 for one because it's old and it's worn out. Morris1234 says, I got a 98 Saturn SL2, runs great. I put steel head gasket sealer every 7 months. It's a good idea. I want to be safe. It's an older car with a lot of miles. Well, you only need to do it once. If you use this steel seal stuff in, you only need to use it once. You just leave it in. It's not like one of my favorite things for oil seal leaks is AT205 reseal. Now, when you change the oil, that's gone. So you have to add it every time you change the oil. You're not changing your coolant. So once you put the steel seal in, you don't have to keep adding it. You just leave it there. It's a permanent thing. Those things did blow head gaskets, so if it's not blowing, keep driving it. It's worth nothing. You wouldn't get anything if you sold it. Keep driving it. Who knows? Could be a good knockaround car. Paul McManus says, 2000 Suzuki Esteem. Why are they so hated? Well, because they were kind of junky cars. Suzuki is a weird company. I guess originally they made looms or something, and it really started out bigger as a motorcycle company. They make killer motorcycles. I had a 750 Gixxer. That thing was one screaming motorcycle. Made it do 180 miles an hour, never leaked oil, started all the time. But their cars were kind of little crappy bucket cars. Being Suzukis, nobody knew how to fix them. There were no real good Suzuki mechanics out there. So it was just a massive failure. Now in the rest of the world, I know guys in Australia and places that drive them and they like them because they can get parts for them and the guys know how to work on them. But here in the United States, rust buckets, they rusted like mad from the salt water if you lived up north and on the beaches here in Texas. So they just really weren't very good cars, which is strange because they made such great motorcycles. Kenneth Place says, Scotty is a 2011 Hyundai Elantra Touring, a good vehicle as a daily driver. I am not a Korean car fan, but, okay, it's 9 years old. You can get those things dirt cheap. And they can still last for 150,000 miles or more if you really take care of them. If you're going to think about buying one, take it to a mechanic like me. Let them check it out. And if they say it's in decent shape and you don't pay much, it can be a good daily driver for going to work. My tax accountant used to own one, and she had it until it was 15 years old. It can be an okay car. And you can get them cheap. You're not going to get a Toyota Camry cheap, used. They go for a lot of money. The Hyundais, they don't. So take advantage of the price is lower, and yeah, the quality's lower, but as a driving around car for work and stuff, they can be decent cars. Weston Miller said, Scotty, I'm looking to buy a minivan for my wife. What do you recommend looking for? 2014 or newer? Sienna vans that can run forever. My son bought one. My brother-in-law had one. Drove it in Texas. Then he moved to England, drove it around there, and then he sold it to some painter in England and came back because it was too much money to ship it over, and he still got good money for it in England. Toyota makes the best minivans in the world, bar none. No one's close. Honda used to make decent ones in the Odysseys, but they screwed up the transmissions, the air conditioning, the electronics, and they're nowhere near as good as a Toyota Sienna. You cannot beat a Toyota Sienna. You're going to pay more, but it's going to last. You get your money's worth. JB says, E10 versus no ethanol gasoline, same octane rating, which is better? All right, all modern cars can run perfectly on 10%, even 15% ethanol. They're designed that way. They have the computer thing. If you have ethanol, ethanol has 15% less energy than gasoline. So if that's 10% ethanol, then you'll get 10% of 15% worse gas mileage, a little bit worse gas mileage. But it also burns cleaner, so the engine actually runs better. If you want to get the best running engine, and you have a car that can use it, you'd use the E85. That's 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline, but you can only use that in a flex fuel car that's set up for that. It will run better, it will last longer, but it'll get almost 15% worse gas mileage, too. Realize that, because ethanol has less energy. Now, if you got an old car, like an old 65 Mustang, you don't want to mess with the ethanol. It'll mess with the carburetor and stuff. Then you would just want to use non-ethanol gasoline, but most of the cars these days will run perfectly fine on either. T-Tuck says, Scotty, you seem very frugal. Do you ever splurge on anything? Well, yes, I just did splurge. A week ago Thursday, I got my billionth view. So what I did was I went out and bought a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne, French champagne. And I always thought, what could be the difference? A $200 bottle of champagne is better than a $20. Well, unfortunately, yes, it is. So I guess if I really wanted a good bottle of champagne, I would buy Dom. But then again, $200 for a bottle. I did, and it was very good champagne. My wife liked it. So every once in a while, I'll splurge on something. But I'll still use my head about it. I'm not going to buy a $2,000 bottle of champagne. Paul Fortuna says, Scotty, what do you think of motorhomes? I know a lot about them. I work on them once in a while. I hate working on them. They're hellacious to work on. I had to put a water pump on one once, and I felt like I was in World War II working in a U-boat. I had to crawl backwards, upside down, inside the cabin to get in and reach it. Hell, I'll never do that again. Motorhomes are one of the biggest money wasters you could possibly ever get. I knew a guy, he's retired now, but here in Houston, the North Part, he sold and repaired the motorhomes, right? He's got them all over the place. So after I was done filming, I said, look, I'm not filming anything, and I'm not quoting you now, so tell me the truth. What do you do when you go on vacation? He says, I rent hotel rooms. I'd never drive one of these things. They're horrible, big, heavy things. You can only park them with everyone else. You know, you get the image, you got your motorhome, you're going to go park in the mountains and look at the bears. No, you're going to park in the motor parking area with all the other people. You're not going to be all alone in the wilderness, you know? The resale value, whew, if he sold a new one for, like back in those days, $70,000, he said 10 years later, hey, they're going for $10,000. They're dirty, moldy. People hardly ever use them. They're tremendous gas hogs if you have a gasoline engine. Some of those things will only get 3 miles a gallon. And even with the diesels, you're still lucky if you get 9 or 10. He sold them and he fixed them. He said, I'd never own one. That'll tell you the truth about motorhomes.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.